So everyone talks about becoming proactive, think long term, and doing actions that will give you returns in the future, right? But how do you actually implement that? I'm also someone who always ends up only finishing the to-dos that are urgent, right? So, but I think a couple of years ago when I was reading a book called 12 Habits of High Successful People, I think it's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Uh, and one thing really struck me, right? The author started talking about a matrix. And I'll just share my screen and show it to you so that you can have a better idea. It's called the urgency matrix or the urgent versus important matrix, right? So you can take a look at this matrix, right? So it is a quadrant basically, and there are 4 quadrants. And in the first quadrant, it's the things which are important and urgent comes there in the first quadrant, right? The examples are like a crisis comes in, right, which is urgent and important, pressing problems, projects, close deadlines. If you want to do a presentation tomorrow and today is 11 p.m. or you know um, near to midnight, it's a huge problem. It's urgent and also it's an important thing, right? So a lot of people who are in this in their professional space drive or has 80 or 90% of their to-dos in this segment or in this quadrant, right? There is no room for error or anything like that because it's urgent. The reason is that we um undervalue uh, the importance of time and overvalue our potential to deliver on time, right? We believe that okay, I have 1 hour and I can deliver it, no problem. We overvalue ourselves and we undervalue the importance of uh, planning early, right? So the second quadrant is a quadrant in which it is important but it's not urgent. So this is my favorite quadrant. I want my to-dos to be in this quadrant, right? So for example, making this YouTube video, it's not urgent for me. I run an agency. I have decent income. This is not even my uh, part-time gig, right? I'm doing this just to learn something new, just to um, create a new audience for myself. So it's totally for example, me running this YouTube channel is totally uh, not urgent, but for me it's important, right? So this type of to-dos comes under the second quadrant, right? So it could also be something like if you want to travel at the end of this year, if you start saving today, right? Every week you save 1,000 rupees so that you can have X amount of money by the end of this year. So that's not urgent, but it's important. So these kind of to-dos are the best to-dos in my opinion, right? So you should also just go through your stuff or your daily activities and decide for yourself whether are you spending more time in quadrant one, or are you spending more time in quadrant two, right? The third one, it's urgent but not important. These are random meetings that we have during the daytime or during our office hours that is urgent, but you know that it's not important, right? Even I've been in meetings that some of my clients have asked me to join, but there is zero relevance for me in there, right? So I had to just because the client has requested me, I had to be present there. It was urgent, but my job role didn't actually cover that, or my deliverables, or I'm not relevant there in that meeting. So these are the things that you can avoid if you have clear communication with them, right? These are interruptions, phone calls, sometimes a lot of things come up which wouldn't make any sense for you to invest time in. But I feel I've also figured out recently that you should say no to these things. It's hard if you're a fresher, if you're just starting out. When I started out, I used to spend a lot of time in quadrant 3, in which a lot of clients would just call us to just have a meeting for them to talk something, and wouldn't get out any kind of actions out of it, right? And the fourth quadrant is also one of the worst things. It's some time wasters, right? For example, working from home and Instagram Reels, right, is a very bad combination for me, right? I've even sometimes I just forget everything, and I just start scrolling in my Instagram feed or YouTube Shorts feed, right? And I end up wasting 10 to 15 minutes. And then only I realize that, hey, just wasted 10 to 15 minutes and I still have a lot of things to do, right? I feel social media and things like this comes in this quadrant. So what I've done is that I've activated a time, what is a screen time uh, in my phone, which helps me, whenever I use Instagram for more than 30 minutes in a day, it automatically says that, hey, you have finished your quota, and it kind of closes out, and I can reopen it again, but it gives me a CTA that, hey, Jason, you have already consumed enough of Instagram, and you should focus on something else, right? So these are my perspective of this quadrant, and I also urge you to spend more time on quadrant 2. Right? It's okay. You cannot avoid quadrant 1. It will be there anyways, but try to plan everything according so that nothing is urgent. Right? So it's very hard. It's a very hard thing to crack, but sometimes. A lot of things are there you can proactively do, right? Maybe going to the gym is not urgent, but it's important, right? Meditating is not urgent, but it's important, right? Things like that. And when it comes to marketing, there are a lot of things that also comes under the second quadrant, right? Some of them are like building a community around your brand, right? uh, I'm building a community on Telegram, on WhatsApp, on my email newsletter for marketers to interact with each other. It's absolutely a second quadrant activity because it's never urgent, right? There is not a thing called urgently we need to build a community, right? It's important, but a lot of people don't do that because it's never urgent and important, right? So it's a slow process in which people come into my Telegram channel and start to engage with them, start getting value out of each other, etc., right? That's one thing. Community building comes under the second quadrant, right? And another activity that I feel comes under the second quadrant is analyzing your Google quotient. For example, if you are selling hair shampoo and your brand's name is um, what you say, Head and Shoulders, maybe, right? And making sure that people can research about you on Google and find out all the details about your brand on Google, right? There are enough blogs, or there are enough reviews, there are enough product pictures, there are enough video reviews, so that people can themselves find out A to Z about your brand and your product, so that they can themselves do an in-depth research in Google, and they, as a cold search or a cold lead, will convert into a buying customer, right? It's really hard or to always have a look at what exactly is coming up on your Google question. You have to make sure that there is nothing negative coming up, or you have to identify if people are talking bad about you on forums, and you have to really come up with solutions to that, right? It's not about deleting them, but having a conversation with them and identifying their problems and solving it, right? And putting out content or reviews or how to use or things like that in YouTube, so that people, when are trying to find out more about your product, sees that, hey, there is presence on YouTube, there is presence on Google, right? So that's another thing that comes under second quadrant. Next thing is the founders of a D2C brand or a startup building a personal brand, right? This is like the most second quadrant activity, right? Nobody is going to question the founder saying that, hey, you don't have a personal brand on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Instagram or anywhere, right? It's an additional value. And always I'm doing this for myself, and I know that every kind of to do or things get prioritized on top of this, right? every day, maybe today I have 3 client calls and I have to create 3 presentations, or I have to reach x amount of goals in sales, or I have to report to someone xyz, right? These are all things that comes under the first quadrant, and mostly the first quadrant activities which are urgent and important overshadows second quadrant activities like building your personal brand, right? So I usually find time after my office hours to build my personal brand, but I make sure that I do it every day, right? And the fourth one is working on the communication, right? On all places where your customer is reading about you. It could be on the contact us page of your website, right? How quirky, if you're a quirky brand, how quirky is your communication on your contact us button, on your footer, things like that. Another could be on your packaging, right? When a brand receives your product, how, what are the things that are written in the packages. I've created another video about whole truth on how they have actually cracked that, right? When you open the package, you feel that there is a continuity between what you've seen in the website, in the social medias. It is just an extension of that brand itself. There, if you're doing quirky things, make sure that you continue that tone in your packaging, and wherever there is a communication in the physical product as well, right? Another thing could be Instagram bio, right? When people are visiting your Instagram, what are you, the first thing that they are reading is your bio, right? It could be a 140 character or 200 character limit. There could be a limit like that, but what are you conveying in that 200 character limit, right? Are you really conveying what exactly your brand stands for, or what the product is about, or are you confusing people, right? These are things like, all these things, all there is always a room for improvement for all of these things, right? So are you doing this? These all, in my opinion, all of these comes under second quadrant, right? So as a marketer or as a business guy or a startup leader, you should always check your to-dos, whether at least 30 or 40 of your to-dos comes under second quadrant, right? If you are able to crack that, I think you'll be ahead of your schedule and things like that. So it has been quite successful for me. I always try to keep my stuff in quadrant 2. So hope this helps. If you love this video, share, subscribe, like. I'll be coming up with more videos every Tuesday. Bye guys.